Welcome to Texarkana College's Genzabar eLearning LMS training course, Lesson 4. In this lesson, you will determine whether or not you want to use the point method or the type, or sometimes it's referred to as the category method, to calculate student averages at the end of the semester. You will also complete the basic setup of the gradebook portlet using the method that you decide on using. Video 1, we are going to look at the two different methods for determining semester grades. If you're not sure which grading method you use, or you're just trying to determine which one to use, this video will explain the difference between the two. So, the first thing you need to do is to select the grading system. And the grading system is going to determine how the grade items in your grade book contribute to your students' final grades or semester grades. There are two basic options in e-learning. There's the point method, and then there is the type, or again category method, and you've got to determine which one of these you want to use. So let's look at the point method first. In a points-based system, each assignment, quiz, test, etc., is given a point value. The final grade, or the semester average, is determined by adding up all the points earned and then comparing it to a grading standard. Let's look at a sample. Say an instructor gives these assignments. They have 5 quizzes worth 10 points each. There's a research paper worth 100 points. There's a class presentation worth 100 points. There are 5 forum posts worth 20 points each. There's a midterm test worth 100 points. And then there's a final exam that has a worth of 200 points. And all that averages up to 650 points when you add it up. Now, when we look at the grades, when we put it in the grade book, we see here are the quizzes, and each one of these quizzes are worth 10 points each. The forums, 20 points each. The research paper, class presentation, midterm test are worth 100 points each. And then the final exam is worth 200 points, which for a total of 650. Then you go in, and when the students' points are added up, say they get 7 out of 10 right, 8, and as you go down, you just put how many points the student received on each assignment, and these all add up to 544. Well, you've got your grade spread. This is the basic 10-point spread, or 10% spread between the letter grades. And so I figured that out, and then an A is going to equal 585 to 650, and each one of these spreads here is worth 10%. So once I get that set up and I look over at the student's average, or sum of grades, is 544, then I see that 544 falls within this B range. So that would be the average that the student would have. So that's not too complicated to figure out. This is what it looks like in the eLearn gradebook. This is a set of assignments out of a history course that's based on the point system. The student gets their overall running average, and it tells them over here, I cut part of it off, but it tells them that their grade could change here as more grades are added. But it tells them that so far they have 285 out of 300 possible points, which would give them an A for the course. And then under assignment grades, it would list each assignment. You've got weekly quizzes in here, a forum question, a unit exam, and it tells the student, like here, this student on the weekly quiz got 20 out of 20 correct, which would be 100%. The forum question, they got 18 points out of the 20, which would be 90%. This forum question number 2 down here, they only got 17 out of 20 points, which would have been an 85. So the grade book itself actually keeps up with all this and keeps a running grade average for the student, which makes it kind of nice. So the point system, again, very easy to do. Now, the type or category method groups all assignments, quizzes, whatever into categories. And then it assigns a percentage or weight, or you assign a percentage or weight to each category. And then the sum of all the categories will be 100%. And while each assignment might be assigned a point value, and it really doesn't matter if it's, like 20 possible points or 50 possible points, the final grade is going to be based on the percentage or weight for the categories. For instance, even if the total number of points for quizzes equals 300 and the total number of points for, say, homework is 100, the homework could still count more towards the final grade if it counts for a greater percentage of the final grade. So let's look at basically the same sample that we did on the point method. The instructor still giving the same assignments: 5 quizzes, research paper, class presentation, forum post, midterm, and final exam. But this time we want to categorize each of these 6 types using a percentage of how much that specific category will count towards the final grade. So I just made this up. I want my quizzes overall, no matter how many I give, but overall that average will add up to 10% of the semester average. The research paper will count 20% of the semester average. The class presentation will count 10%, the forum post 10%, giving a little more weight to my midterm exam here at 15%, and my final exam, I really want to count it and make it valuable so the student won't just goof off at the end of the semester. I'm counting it 25% of their grade. So if I look at their grades, and I know this looks kind of complicated here, and most of this is done internally in e-learning, and you don't have to actually perform any math functions. I've got my same assignments over here, my quizzes, my forums, etc. I have the point value that was the same for each of them on the points, and then I've got in there the actual grade or number of points that the student got on each assignment. So I take the sum of the student points, which I add up, like if it's on the quizzes here, and I've color coded these to kind of give you an idea. Each one of these is a different category. Here's my quiz category that's worth 10%. The green here is my forum category worth 20%. The yellow is my research paper that's worth 20%. Class presentation on the blue worth 10. The red is my midterm test, and the gold down here is my final exam. So I add in quizzes the 7, the 8, the 10, the 10, the 6, and I get 41. And I divide that by the total possible points. I've got 5 at 10 points each. That gives me 50 points. So if I divide that, I get a decimal of 0.82. I take that 0.82 and I multiply it times this percent turned into a decimal. So 0.82 times 0.1 gives me 0.082. Same way on the forums. I add up all my forum points, and the student has received 86 points out of a possible total of 100. That would be a 0.86 times 0.1, 0.086. Now, when I get down to these last 4, there's only one assignment in each one of these, but I made a 80 out of 100 on the research paper, and that gives me a 0.80, but it's worth 20%. So that's the 0.80 times 0.2, which will give me 0.16. The class presentation, the student made a 90 out of 100 points, 0.90. 0.90 times 0.1 for the 10% is 0.09. Made a 67 though on the midterm test, but then that midterm test counts 15% of their grade. So they got 67 out of 100, which would be 0.67. So then I take the point 0.6, and that should be a 7 there, times 0.15 equals 1.005. And that is the correct answer when you multiply it times 0.67. And then on the final exam, they got 180 out of 200 points. That gives them a 0.90 times 25% as a decimal is 0.25, and that's going to equal 0.225. So now, to get the student's average, all I have to do is add up all of these numbers for each category. And if I add all those up, I'll get a 0.7435. Now, of course, if I'm going to change that to a whole percentage, that would be 74.35%. So this student, if I'm basing it, 70 to 79 is going to be a C, that student would receive a C. And this is what it looks like on the student's eLearn gradebook when they get in and look at their grades. They also would have an overall average. This example here is not the same example that we just went over. I just went in a government class and pulled out a grade for someone that I knew the instructor was using the type or category method. They would have the overall average just like the student with the point system, but then their assignment grades are going to be divided by types. You've got an assignment, an exam, and forums that this instructor used. On the assignments, they were going to count 12.5% of the final grade. And the student will see this. This is actually a student grade sheet. The exams were going to count 75% of the student's final grade, and the forum grades were going to count 12.5% of the student's grades. You add all that up, it comes up to a 69.84, which says it's a D. Most people, if it's over zero point 0.5 or above, would round that off and the student would get a C. But again, that's left up to the instructor. Whatever your syllabus says about your grading system is what you would go by. So that explains the two different methods for determining a student's semester average. It's up to you to decide which one you want to use. Both have advantages, both have disadvantages. But maybe you can make a more informed decision now. That's the end of video 1.